Aerial Phenomenal Research Organization, which is a worldwide organization which handles reports from all over the world by people who have sighted, professionals, scientists, physicists?
Yes, we have representation in 50 different countries, and at the moment we aren't getting much from overseas because I guess there's so much activity in the States. It's sort of obscured what may be happening elsewhere for the time being. But the activity seems to be largely in the southwest, southeast, largely in the southeast, mostly all east of the Mississippi at the time. And I can just give an idea of what is happening. In Mississippi also, we have a case involving the so-called angel's hair, where UFOs were seen at a sort of a high altitude, and filmy silvery substance came floating down to Earth. This has been reported in quite a few other cases, and we have quite a bit of it this time being kept under refrigeration. And I think we'll subject that to gas chromatography tests and mass spectrography and so on, and try to determine what it is.
There's been a lot of reports, especially in the United States lately, of unidentified flying objects. What is the sudden increase of reports that you've had at the Aerial Phenomenal Research Organization?
Well, I think it's what we would call a flap condition. We've had quite an increase of reports, and they seem to be a substantial type report. In other words, we have reports of people having close encounters or near flyovers and this sort of thing. I think we all have heard about the Pascagoula, Mississippi case, where two men that were fishing reported that a UFO came down about 40 feet from them and then floated out and floated them aboard and examined them. Mm-hmm. It's really a wild-sounding story, but we sent one of our consulting staff, Dr. Harder, in there to interview those people, and he came away convinced that they were describing a real occurrence to the best of their ability.
What are some of the details about that particular incident?
The men, as I said, were fishing at an abandoned shipyard a little up the Pascagoula River from an operating shipyard where these men work. They were fishing not for sport but for food, and it was late at night, about 11 o'clock. They said that this object came down near the ground, about 40 feet from them, and the older man, the younger of the two, fainted early in the incident, and he can't tell us too much about it. Mm-hmm. The older man said that he felt like jumping in the river to get away, but he couldn't. Then he said that some beings that looked roughly humanoid, he described them as having wrinkly, silvery skin, pointed ears, slits for eyes, slit for mouth, pointed nose, and hands, no hands, they were claws. They were two opposed digits that grasped like a pincher. And he said when those pinchers, when they floated over the and those pinchers grabbed them, that they were weightless and they just floated aboard. Like I say, it sounds like science fiction. But then science fiction writers have told us that the activities of an advanced culture would seem like magic to us. Well, this certainly fills that bill. But under hypnosis, you see, these men were regressed. They became panicky all over again, the sort of thing that can't really be simulated. And I think one of the deputies there stated it quite well in folksy terms. He said, if it wasn't a real thing, then those guys ought to be in Hollywood. He says, they couldn't be that excited without something happening. One of our consultants has brought up the idea that mankind is just on the verge of becoming a highly technical society, and that this is probably the most dangerous area in man's development. He thinks it's a threshold that's very difficult to cross, the likelihood being that an intelligent race reaching this stage of advancement might destroy itself, thinking specifically the atomic bomb and things of that sort. He thinks that to a visiting species that has passed that stage, that this would be a very interesting stage in the development of a planet to watch, and they might be here observing for that reason.
Well, in our past recorded history about UFOs, it's been said that there's been times where these beings have contacted certain leaders of certain nations and have warned them about our particular development in technology and the negative use of nuclear weapons and this type of thing. Do you think that perhaps they're returning for any purposes like this with these recent sightings and landings?
Well, I think that these stories of contact are always open to question. They usually appear in scriptural material and very seldom have any historical backing that you're able to trace. I would rule out that possibility, but I would say that evidence up to this time indicates that they're here for their purposes and not for ours. I've noticed that there has been sort of a groundswell of interest over the years that's progressed very slowly, but I think that now we're confronted with a situation where the government credibility is a very low ebb. And people are discounting the previous government studies that have said there's really nothing to this. And also, the situation on the Earth is such that I think people are glad to entertain the idea that this may not be the best there is. It's sort of a diversionary thing in these troubled times, I guess.
One of the most interesting aspects of the UFO syndrome is the recurrence of reports of abductions of Earthlings by aliens from outer space. One of the oldest organizations involved in investigation of abductions is the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization, headquartered in Tucson, Arizona. We interviewed its co-founder, Mr. Jim Lorenzen.
Scientific consultant staff and investigators around the world. We collect reports from all around the world, and we analyze these reports and make some judgments as to their merit. And we accumulate a library which is available to scientists to study. This is a job that has not been undertaken by anyone else. We feel it's a need that really needs to be fulfilled. Travis Walton was in the National Forest in central Arizona in company of 6 other people. They saw at close hand an unidentified flying object. Travis approached it and was struck by a beam of some kind which knocked him down. The other people fled the scene. When they saw some lighted object apparently leave the scene, they came back to look for Travis, but they didn't find Travis. Travis showed up 5 days later at a different location, and he told of having been held aboard some craft by strange aliens. That's the essence of the story. It was quite a difficult one to investigate. When Travis first appeared after this experience, he was in bad physical shape, and our first approach there was to get him to some medical doctors. The witnesses in the Travis Walton case were subjected to polygraph tests because they were suspected of having done away with Travis, and the test took place 5 days after the incident. All of the 6 that took the test passed except one, and his test was determined to be just no test because he couldn't calm down even in answering his own name. He was upset about the idea that he might have done something to Travis. But all these men passed the test that they had seen an object. Travis was subjected to the first test 10 days after his disappearance, and that test was poorly administered, and it was done under bad circumstances, and he failed it. We went back testing under the ideal conditions, and he passed, and he has since then passed additional tests, and he has passed the PSE test administered by the inventor of the machine. The PSE test determines stress in the voice, the assumption being that a person lying will show stress in the same way that polygraph picks up stress. Now, we use this quite often when we have just single witness testimony and we have it on tape, because all we need is the tape. So it's a very convenient tool for truth verification. We conclude that Travis Walton was telling the truth about a real occurrence to the best of his ability. This young man in question contacted us by mail, sent us some photographs that he'd taken, and our first approach then was to analyze the photographs to see if there was any probability that they were hoaxed. they seemed to be genuine, so our next step then was to contact the young man and to check somewhat into his background and to become acquainted with him. Then our approach from there on is sort of like criminal investigation. We subjected his testimony to PSE, and he took a polygraph test to verify the truthfulness of his testimony. And also, since the man did report that he was abducted and that he saw aliens aboard a strange craft, we have had him draw what he saw aboard the craft, and we are also having an artist produce a model of the alien that he described.
This is a model of an alien, based on information supplied to artists by abductees William Herman and Travis Walton. Artist Alan Levine created this sculpture. Using the same procedures followed by police departments when investigating a crime, artist Levine was able to arrive at this likeness of the alien. Sketches were made while the abductee described the creature, and after these were corrected, Levine proceeded with the sculpture. This was a painstaking endeavor, as the witnesses did not always agree. Both men agreed on the almond-shaped eyes, small nose and mouth, the unusual position of the ears, and the large hairless skull. And although the alien does have a mouth, all communication was telepathic.
We try not to coach the witnesses in any manner by facial expression, because we find, for instance, that quite often the subject of some kind of an encounter is looking to us for answers and is trying to please us. So we have to avoid that part in order to get an objective report. I think that our first concern that we always show is the welfare